Hi, I'm Shane Lipson from Mount Franklin Insurance, and one of the specialty areas that we enjoy working with customers on are trade contractors, or sometimes called specialty contractors, that work in one particular area. So they can be framers, or painters, or roofers, or electricians, or plumbers, or any other kind of specialty trade contractor. And when clients approach us in that field to talk about their insurance, there are really four areas of insurance that we talk with them about, and three of them that are liability coverages, and one of them that's a major property type of coverage. And so I'd like to chat about that for a few moments if you're a business out there who's some type of specialty trade contractor and looking to put insurance in place for a job you're going to be working on. The three liability areas that we talk about are general liability, automobile liability, and workers' compensation or employer's liability. Very often, subspecialty contractors might also need an umbrella or excess coverage because the job that they're bidding on or the kind of protection that they need has higher limits of coverage, but that fits on top of existing policies. And so those are really the three areas that we like to focus on. The general liability policy provides protection against two areas, in particular property damage and bodily injury that you might cause to someone else. Some of the things that we focus on with our special trade contractors are the exclusions that carriers very often add, and it's really important that if you are buying a general liability policy that you speak with your agent or broker or directly read the policy or quotation that you're buying and look at those exclusions. The things that we see very often that concern us are exclusions of injury to subcontractors or employees of the subcontractor. And I think that's a really dangerous exclusion because one of the most dangerous areas that you can be dragged into a lawsuit is if one of your employees or one of the employees of someone else that you're subcontracting against gets injured. The second place to look at are exclusions for certain types of trades or certain types of work. So if you're a roofer, often there are exclusions that have to do with hot roof work versus cold roof work. And there often are also exclusions for different types of development projects. So for example, tract home or tract developments often have exclusions as well. So depending on the kind of work that you're doing, we really need to look at the kinds of exclusions that are built in. The second of the big areas are auto liability coverages. And again, an area that I think is really overlooked and that you should think about is coverage not just for the automobiles that the business may own, but for hired and non-owned autos. Because if you have a business and you have employees that are driving on company time, you have a business exposure for auto liability coverage. And if your agent or you haven't added non-owned liability coverage or sometimes hired liability coverage, you're going without insurance. Workers' compensation insurance is important, and in all states, with the exception of Texas, it's legally mandated. And within Texas, we actually strongly recommend it. The greatest thing about workers' compensation insurance is that just by having that policy in place, you can remove a large area of liability that people can sue you for tort claims just by virtue of having that policy there. And we have an entire other video dedicated to workers' compensation, employers' liability, and I recommend that you watch that if you have other questions. Those are the three big liability areas that we like to talk about with our contractors, but there's also a fourth area which a lot of contractors don't think about, and that's property coverage. Now, a lot of people think about property in terms of buildings that they own or stuff that are inside buildings like desks and computers and chairs, and that's all very important and maybe relevant in your world. But in addition, a lot of contractors have trade tools, and you really see this at the subcontractor level much more than at the general contractor level, where subs have to bring in their own tools. And whether you're a plumber, electrician, or roofer, or painter, or carpenter, you typically have trade tools that can become quite expensive if something were to happen to them. If they were vandalized, if they were stolen, if there was a fire on the job site, or any other kind of thing that can happen to those tools. And it's important because that kind of coverage requires often a different type of policy, what we call an inland marine policy, than just a standard property policy, because those tools are mobile. They go with you. And it can become really important, in particular, if you have large tools like generators or even maybe a small forklift or cherry picker or something of that nature. And so it's really important that we look at that property exposure, not just what's at your home base in your office, but in those tool sets and equipment that you bring along. So if you're a trade contractor, a specialist of any kind, and you're working for a general contractor on a job site. Those are kind of 4 areas we really recommend that you think about. And so if you'd like us to take an opportunity to review the coverage that you have and give you feedback around your policy, feel free to give us a call at Mount Franklin Insurance.